Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to Mandatory Conversations Podcast with Mike Johnson. I am on with my big bro today. We're going to have some fun. This gentleman, some of you guys know him if you're here in the DC area. He is very well known. He has been on WHUR for years. He is the host, Mr. Harold Fisher himself of WHUR's. I'm blanking out already. WHUR's Daily Drum. Daily Drum. I don't know why I'm blanking out. I listen to this almost every day with this guy. And more than that, just being the host of the Daily Drum, he is a very good ear. And when I say that, when you talk to him, he gives great advice. He's a great frat brother, great friend, a great man just in general. I feel like every time I talk to him, there's some people you can pick up the phone and you'll talk to him for like 15, 20 minutes. I feel like every time I pick up the phone and talk to him, it might be like an hour or 2 hours and 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever the case is, because the conversation is just that great. And I promise you on tonight, it's going to be much of that. You'll get a chance to get, to listen in on some grown man conversation. Tonight, men over 50 navigating middle age challenges, changes, and comebacks. What men 50 plus really go through. That's the conversation for tonight. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, share this most importantly, because this conversation is going to be great. Harold, first of all, man, it is such a pleasure to have you on. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and I am extremely honored, one, to have you. I know how busy you are. In fact, I believe you may have just gotten off the air not long ago from doing your own show.
Ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from doing your show. And so I'm excited to have you. And we haven't really talked much about this subject matter, but I know because you do so much interviewing and so much research, I already know this is going to be, again, another great one to talk about something that you and I both know a lot about at this point. Men
clothes.
Here we go. So, man, men over 50, it can be challenging, Harold, for men over 50 who find themselves in maybe a midlife crisis, maybe not a midlife crisis, but it's just something, Harold, about turning 50 years old that kind of changes your entire life. And it's sometimes a challenge or challenges, and sometimes it's just a repositioning. Sometimes it's, I don't even know what's going on. And so you wake up one morning and you trying to figure out what the hell just happened. And on tonight, I want to talk about that with you. And I want to talk about your specific experiences. I want to talk about some of the advice that you can offer some of us who are in our 50s, some of us deep in our 50s, some in our 60s, even some in our 70s, because we do know this, that there are different challenges as you move from 50 to 60, or let's say 40 to 50, that first jump, I'll call it. And then from 50 to 60, and then from 60 to 70. And from there, my brother, I will put it in your hands to let you kick us off and get us started. And I got a ton of questions for you. And I know, listen, guys, if you haven't laughed in a while, just get prepared. How really, honestly, he should have probably been a part-time comedian or something of the sort, because he's going to have you in stitches on tonight. I'm positive of that. It's good to have you on, my brother. Come on and kick us off.
Well, first and foremost, you talk about men over 50. I turned 50 11 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, I cannot honestly say that I felt any kind of struggles with midlife crisis. I think because I was then and now just always working.
Yep.
And I think that's part of it. I don't believe that I ever really had an opportunity to have a midlife crisis per se. I didn't buy a sports car, or anything like that. Certainly when I turned 50, I was married, am no longer. Stuff happens.
Yeah. I mean, we can even talk about that, Harold. I mean, we can not even necessarily a midlife crisis. But let me ask you a question, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I remember how when I turned 50, I felt different. And I don't know if you did as well, but I felt different. I remember thinking about the run up to 50. I remember thinking about I'm 49, but I'm getting ready to turn 50. Some people go from that thing and where they turn 20, from 30 to 31 or 40 to 41 or 39 to 40, whatever. I just remember thinking to myself, man, I'm getting ready to turn 50 years old, and I'm not quite sure that I'm ready to turn 50. Like I can stop it, right? And because I thought about financially, had I done everything that I could financially for my kids, had I done everything that I possibly could for my kids, for my wife, for my business, like just have I? It was all of these questions. Not that I really probably wasn't prepared, but I just was nervous about turning 50 because I had heard so much about men who go through these different things in their 50s. And I was like, well, will I fall prey to that? What would life look like at 50 and then beyond? And so I guess my question to you is, did you have that kind of feeling, or you were just confident? I know you're a very confident person anyway, but were you just confident about, going into your 50s and out where you're like, this is just a breeze. I'm just going to walk into it and keep it moving?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a breeze, but I will say that I was ready for it.
Okay.
I was really ready for it. You can't stop it. It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so my thing was going to, embrace it. I think as a much younger person, when I was in, say, my 20s or even in my 30s, I was thinking, man, what are you going to look like when you are in your 50s? What is that going to feel like? But when I got there, I was thinking I remember kind of thinking, oh, I'm doing all right. Then I'm feeling, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Had been through some, I had some health stuff over the 20 years leading up to 50. Had some surgeries, some emergency surgeries and everything, and was taking care of it. But I was also in the midst of my stride. I had been at that point at WHUR for probably a good, I guess, 7 or 8 years, but I had a really, really good television career. And I had already done a lot of the things that I wanted to do. And when I say that, I think the only thing that I really hadn't done enough of was travel internationally. But I had experiences. I had an opportunity to see things, and certainly in this job, I think you get an opportunity to see more than most people, to meet different kinds of people, to see different kinds of things. But I very much embraced 50 because, of course, as you know, living in the DMV, for those of us at that age, we saw, when we were in our 20s, we realized that a lot of Black men, by hook or crook, did not make it to 50.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, exactly. Whether they had been involved in some things that they should not have been involved in, or just by happenstance, health issues, and so making it, to 50 was was a great thing, and even 60. Even better. But I guess I've already been very serious about the whole getting older, not old, but getting older, but also just embracing it, because I have an opportunity to embrace it.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I think that's a key word here, right? Is embracing it. And I think most brothers don't know how to embrace it, because there's so many things that come with it. Like, I'm 50, I'll be 56 in a month. Or actually not in a month, but in a few days, in February 7th to be exact, I'll be 56. And I think about this every birthday. I just think about the previous birthday, the previous 5 years, the previous 10 years, so forth and so on, and how much different life looks. And Harold, I'm going to be honest with you, man, and we could get into this, the health thing, because you talked about this. I want to touch on health, marriage, kids, career, so forth and so on. But one of the things you touched on was health and how you were dealing with some things prior to being in your 50s. But also too, when you get to be 50, man, and this is for me personally, I didn't have a lot of health anything prior to turning 50. Like I didn't have high blood pressure. I didn't have any of these kinds of things. I was in really actually great shape going into 50. But man, I got to like 52, 53. You wake up one morning, you're like, man, my shoulder's hurting. Like, what?
Yes, from all of that Kappa shimmying. That's why your shoulders were hurting.
That could be it. But
and
I
your
mean,
knees
just
too.
in general, these little things just start popping up. And then I remember going to the doctor one day, Harold. This was, I think I might have been 51 or 52. And the doctor's like, hey, your blood pressure is a little elevated. And I was like, what? What do you mean my blood pressure is elevated? And then he was like, yeah, it's just a little elevated, but we got to pay attention to it. The next year I go back, he's like, hey, it's a little bit more elevated. So I'm like, all right, what's going on here? And we started talking about stress, and we started talking about anxiety and these other things. And so I just started talking to other friends, Harold, and I was like, hey, are you guys dealing with some of this stuff like stress, anxiety? He was like, man, I've been dealing with this, that. It's like the bleeps and all that kind of stuff for about, 10 years or so. And I was like, really? They was like, Mike, we're surprised that you're just dealing with it. And what I found out, Harold, it wasn't that I was just dealing with it. I was just confronted with it. Because I had never really had an issue with blood pressure before. But now, I think I was figuring out how to manage the stress and some of these different anxieties that, most of us Black men go through in these corporate jobs, these corporate positions, and these types of just daily life. And I remember him telling me that. And I was like, man, what in the world? Where did this just come from? Like, it just seemed like it popped up. And it just seems like every year, it's just something else. And what I realize is that's just a part of growing older, right? And I'm gonna say this one last thing. I want you to chime in here. And this, for all the men that's watching, for everybody's watching, thank you so much for joining us on tonight. Please do me a favor, drop your comments and your questions, and Harold and I are going to get to them. But this is what I want to say to you, Harold. What I remember is what I'm thinking about now is in my mind, I feel like I'm 40 or 30 or 20, and I can still do all the things that I could do in my earlier or previous years. And I'm telling you, Harold, it was a very frightening experience the other day when I went outside to try to shovel some of the snow, which I could do very easily. I went outside for like 3 hours, man, and I looked at how much I had gotten accomplished. I was like, Mike, you can't do that anymore. Like in your mind, you think you could do it. About 10 years ago, you definitely could knock this out. It wouldn't be any problem whatsoever. And I think as men, sometimes one of the hardest things about growing older, especially when you get to be 50 plus, is realizing that the things you did in your 40s, your 30s, and 20s, you're not going to be able to do it, not at the level that you previously could do it. Maybe that you cannot do it, but you just aren't able to do it at that level. And in some instances, Harold, you won't be able to do it, or you can't do it at all.
So let me say this about two things that you mentioned. Let's talk about daily stress. For me, and this has a lot to do with the job that I do, having a career that has been 99% in the news business, where you have daily and sometimes hourly deadlines. Oof. You are groomed in this career to handle stress. Okay, because this job can be really, really stressful, but there's also an adrenaline rush. And I'll give you an example. For anybody who watches news on television, when you have breaking stories and you have reporters who are out in the field and something happens, and they're out there at the top of the hour, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or what have you, and they are able to deliver the information smoothly and what have you, there is a big adrenaline rush. There is stress, but I think I've gotten used to it, because the reality is my show comes on at 7 o'clock, and no matter what happens, I always know from the time that I get up in the morning until 6:58 p.m. that 7 o'clock is coming, whether I like it or not.
Yep.
And so as a result, I have to I have to deal with that. I think that I am fortunate because we know that, anxiety is a mental health issue, whether someone has chronic anxiety or because obviously there's a difference, and I'm no physician, but I've spoken to enough to know that you have nervousness about something, and then you have anxiety. And maybe I'm very, very lucky about that. I don't think I've ever felt any extreme sense of anxiety other than probably when I knew that I had done something that I shouldn't have. And I knew when I got home that my father was waiting for me with a belt. Yes, there was a great deal of anxiety or there was a switch involved or something like that. Or as when I was, pledging Kappa as an undergrad, yes, there was a great deal of anxiety as an undergrad student, pledging the fraternity. But at this stage, I guess it just doesn't happen, and I'm of the mindset, just do it. And maybe that's because I've always just jumped into things with both feet, fly or fall. And not to judge those who may struggle with these things. That's just not something that I do struggle with. Now, on the health thing, I will say, because I did during the pandemic, I remember going to get a test, and while I was waiting for the test, they called me in the back, and the doctor sat me down, and she had on a mask. And she says, you need to go to the hospital. And I said, why? And she said, your blood pressure is high. And I said, I feel fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not going anywhere. And I remember she looked at me like this.
Wow.
Which meant, okay, I'm going to go. And particularly as it relates to Black men, if you have access to healthcare, whether it's insurance or clinic or what have you, go. I have some of the best health insurance that I've ever had, but I also pay a lot of money for it. And if something hurts, I go.
Yep.
If it doesn't feel good, I go. I don't, and some brothers just don't want to go to the doctors. My doctor is a 15-minute drive from here. I have a great relationship with my physician, so I just go. And allow me to get on the soapbox as it relates to the dreaded prostate exam that men don't like to do. Just get the shit done.
Yeah.
Just do it and keep it moving. It's just not something it takes 10 seconds. And I would honestly say the only thing that you have to worry about other than detecting that something is going on is if during the exam that you see the doctor's, you see both of his hands and you still feel there's a problem. But other than that, get that done. Your wife or your girlfriend, your partner, whatever you got, they will appreciate it. It's just that among other things is so important.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, and I'm glad you did in reference to this prostate thing, because most men don't go get screened for prostate cancer. And this is one of the things I'm talking about, Harold. So, and this is going to tie, you'll see in a second, it'll all tie together, that a lot of men have anxiety about that. That's why they don't go, because they're really scared, terrified that something might be wrong. And here's the truth of the matter, right? It probably is something wrong that you've let linger, and now the chances is it's probably gotten progressively worse. It's gotten progressively worse, and you still haven't gone. And now you don't want to hear the prognosis because you think it's immediate death. Well, one of the things I've learned about prostate, and let me just real quick, as you did, I'm just going to put a pin in it for a second. If you haven't been screened yet, if you're 50 years old, if you're 40 years old watching us now, you need to go get screened for prostate. Do not let another day go by and not get screened for prostate. If you're 50 years old and you haven't gone, you're 10 years behind. If you're 60 years old, you're 20 years behind. You really need to get this done. Here's the thing I learned about 3 years ago, Harold. I was at a retreat at Ebenezer AME Church. Shout out to Pastor Granger and Joanne Browning. They did a men's retreat, and on the men's retreat, Tony Perkins, Tony Perkins, you know him. He has prostate cancer, and he came and he talked about how the whole experience from A to Z, how it started, you know, from him finding out to where he was currently in his treatment. And one of the things he talked about was how Black men do not go get screened for this. And this is one of the cancers that you can beat if it's detected early. And he talked about, you know, some of the different ways that they check you to figure out if you do it. Now, we already know there's that one dreaded test. I know a lot of men, including myself, we never want to get this test done, but you need to get it done. And it's the you know, that oral exam that, you know, I mean, you know.
You mean the anal exam?
Excuse me, I'm not oral. Excuse me. Yes, anal exam. Excuse me.
That's something else.
That's something. That's another show. That's another show. We'll come back and talk about that later. The anal exam, and the anal exam for most men is terrifying because we've never had an experience like this, and it's not something we think about, right? But I'm here to tell you, like you said, how it's a 10-second maybe kind of a thing, 15 seconds, probably at the most. But you also know now technology is so good that even if you didn't get that test, you can get a blood test, right? And they'll screen you from your blood. If they find something in your blood, they'll recommend you to either get an MRI or a biopsy, depending on what's going on. If it's a little bit more severe, they'll have you do the MRI. If it's even more severe, they'll have you do the biopsy. Biopsy is going to tell you exactly what's going on. But the MRI is pretty accurate as well. My point is this, is that you need to get it done. And you need to get it done as early as possible. And don't go get it done one time. No. This is a yearly thing. You need to go get it done yearly. Some of you guys need to go every 6 months. My doctor told me that my prostate was, I had a higher level of prostate where my prostate had gotten a little bit bigger and it grown, right? It was inflamed. And so he's like, well, we need you to come in another 8 months because we want to check you. I had it checked and said, then I got it checked and I was fine. But you got to just keep doing this because you want to make sure that your life is prolonged, that you can live. It's easy to go get this done. It's not a hard thing. And if you're having a problem, you're struggling, won't you tell another brother to go with you, to ask your wife to go? If you're like me, my wife went with, she's like, I'm going with you because I don't trust that I'm going to get all the information from you. Like, I want to hear it for myself firsthand, right? Because, and I'm just going to be honest, a lot of men will tell some things, but not everything. And your wife, let me throw this one more thing in.
Go ahead.
Your wife is your advocate. So a lot of questions that you're afraid to ask, your wife will ask. Like, she'll put it out there. She'll be like, hey, listen, what about this? Does he need to come back next week? Does he need to come back tomorrow? What kind of medication? Did he do this right? What are the instructions? Like, your wife will go through and she will just bam, 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 bam down the line where you might be afraid or too nervous because if God forbid you hear the C word, because then now everything changes, right? And I can see I got a good friend of mine on Phil is on, and he could probably talk about this more in depth. I know he could because he's been through this, and I've watched this journey. And man, you can beat it if you go get tested regularly and you get tested early. What were you gonna say, Harold?
Well, I was going to say and this is one of the things that is about men and the relationships with the people that they are supposed to love and trust most.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever truly understood why. Let us assume, for the sake of this conversation, that you are married to someone whom you trust and love.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you keep that from that person? Because if there is no other person on the planet that you should tell, your wife, or for those who maybe just partnered or what have you, that's the person that you really need to tell. The communication, I've said this for years, I don't have that disease of lack of communication.
No.
Maybe certainly I over communicate, but then again, I come from a family of communicators. But I think it's always important to say it and have the two of you work it out together. One of the other things I did want to say about one of my biggest health challenges that I've ever had, a lot of people don't know this, although I've mentioned this on the show for years, is that I smoked cigarettes for 20 years. I smoked from August of 1981 until November 13th of 2001. And I will say, and at one point, when I was in undergrad school, I was smoking 3 packs a day. That's 30 cigarettes a day. Now, upon quitting on November 13th of 2001, I never went back, but that was the second time that I quit. And so again, nicotine is a big addiction, and that's one of the reasons why I don't smoke cigars. Guys love to go out and do that. I don't do that. And the only, and I kind of joke about this, but this is really what happened. When I quit in November of 2001, it was on the National Smokeout Day. The following October, I bought my first house because at that time, I realized that I was spending $7,000 a year smoking cigarettes. And instead, what I did was the money that I saved helped me with a down payment for the house that I'm living in now here in Baltimore. So everybody has their demons, their health challenges, whether it's prostate issues or whether it's some kind of addiction, because cigarette smoking is an addiction.
Yeah,
it is an addiction. These things, man up and try to address it, if not for yourself, for the people around you.
No, man, thank you for sharing that. I had no idea that you smoke. I would have never known that you smoked, as a matter of fact. But
oh yeah,
thank you for sharing that.
Alfred Dunhill Limited in the blue box. If I was going to do it, I was going to do it in style.
You're bougie, Harold. You're bougie.
Yeah, I had bougie cigarettes, and they were expensive.
Yeah, exactly. So just real quick, because I don't want to spend too much time on the health part of it, but I do know in our 50s, and I can honestly see why some men are afraid, anxious, or even very nervous about about their health in their 50s, because man, honestly, in your 50s, you start facing a lot more health challenges just because you're getting older. It's more likely that the older you get, the more likely something is going to come up, whether it be, cancer, whether it be high blood pressure, diabetes, or one of these other diseases that we get that we could probably avoid. But the thing of it is, man, we're in our 50s, and what we got to do is stop playing games with ourselves and saying, well, it's just going to go away, when we know for a fact it's not just going to go away. And it's a disservice, honestly, Harold, for those of us who don't treat our bodies well and take care of ourselves, to our family members, to our friends, if you have children, if you're married, to whomever else you might be connected to. That's unfair to them that you wouldn't take care of yourself, because the truth of the matter is you could be doing better, but you aren't. And I understand the fear. And if you are fearful, that's why you need to have someone in your life, your wife, girlfriend, significant other, friend, frat brother, somebody that you could go to and talk to and say, hey, man, look, I'm suffering with this. I'm having an issue with this. I'm struggling in this area. Can you help me out? What can I do? So we do it. You mentioned communication, Harold, and this is one thing I'm learning. I've been doing a lot of research on men as I've gotten ready to relaunch the podcast. And one of the things I'm finding, Harold, is about men is we don't communicate well, which you probably already know this, if we communicate at all. And when we do communicate, it's usually an outburst of some sort that really gets us in trouble. But one of the things that's been alarming is that a lot of men, this is what I found to me that's been alarming. There are a lot of men who don't have friends. The studies show there's something like 82% of men don't have a single friend. And I'm like, okay, I know that's partly, I think, because of COVID. COVID put us in a kind of a place where, everybody was kind of segregated. You couldn't go and meet with people and hang out, do the stuff that we normally did for about 5 years, or 4 or 5 years that we went through that whole thing, right? But a lot of men don't have any friends, so there's no one really to communicate with. And that's crazy and that's scary to me, because I know I can pick up the phone and me and you have talked about all kinds of stuff many times for hours. And I count it a blessing to be able to have someone like you that I can come and talk to, and vice versa. But a lot of men, they don't have that where they can go readily express themselves or share with someone that I'm struggling with this. I'm not sure about that, without feeling like they're insecure or less than a man.
So, and again, let me just say, and as it relates to me, and this kind of dovetails into the issue of friends. Um, in order to have friends, you first have to learn how to be one.
Yep.
That's the first thing. Also, COVID notwithstanding, if you are over 50, you have lived long enough, well before COVID, to have established relationships. Okay. And I'm talking about relationships of all kinds.
Mm-hmm.
One of my biggest blessings is my brother friends. I have great sister friends too, but when you're talking specifically about male friends, I have a solar system, is what I would like to say, of friends, guys who are my Mars, my Venus, my Earth.
That's good.
And there are 5 of them. One I've known since 8th grade, another 10th grade, another 11th grade, another that I've known since after I graduated from college. And these aren't even frat brothers. These are just good guys. I think part of the difficulty with having men with whom you can be friends and vulnerable with is that often men, even in their youth, they become friends through competition
Mm-hmm.
with, whether it's on the basketball court, football court, football field, or what have you. That is not how I developed these friendships.
Okay.
They were not friendships that were developed through competition. They were developed through conversation. And so as a result, and through jokes, and it's so funny. I said this to one of the guys that I've known since 8th grade. His name is Dexter. He was actually on this program last month or so. And when we were talking, I said, we never, and this is probably a personality trait of all of us, we never joned on each other, as we said. We never did that. And I think, and I don't know, maybe that has something to do with our parents, but we were complimentary with each other. We were tight. Our relationship was a very emotional, was then and still is to this day, an emotionally intimate relationship. So we were never saying, your mama's so fat, but we didn't do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And don't ask me why, but we didn't. And I love them dearly. They know my secrets, I know theirs, and we are very, very honest with each other. And if nothing else, if anybody who's dealing with anxiety as it relates to communicating with their friends, because we have that kind of relationship, I can call any one of them and say, hey, look, this is what's bothering me. I mean, when my father died in 2022, I remember, calling one of them and and I was just bawling on the phone because my father was also a frat brother. I remember saying to him, I said, I don't know how to do this
Mm,
because my father was my hero,
mm.
and we all of us have been through that when you're talking about grieving,
Yep.
when our relationships, marriages ended, or some of them, we were having issues like that. So I think, first of all, again, if you want to have a friend, you need to be a friend. If you want somebody you can trust, they have to be able to trust you. And I think beyond, one of the other things I will say about being 50, and even before that, is, as imperfect as I know that I am, one of the things that I really started working on is, for myself, trying to be a better man
Yep.
every day, big or small. Sometimes you don't do anything other than make up your bed, but
Mm-hmm.
then other times you may shovel your neighbor's walkway, or
Mm-hmm.
you may decide to make a donation to a charity, or
Yep.
maybe you decide not to snap at someone, um, when you feel the need to do that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and friends are very, very important, because as you get older, and I've seen this with, my parents' friends, and my mother says all the time, we're not here to stay.
Correct. And you know, it's interesting. I was gonna move away from this, but because like it just hit me, I feel it. Because I feel like we're in a serious part of the conversation. When you're in your 50s, Harold, I don't know about you, but I am really relishing my relationships with men. Because I'm starting to see how life is precious, man, and we don't know when our time is going to come, right? And you don't know when one of your friends' time is going to come. And I'm at this phase of my life right at 56. I'm starting to see relatives starting to die off. Old friends, hell, that I've had for years, 20, 30, 40 years, they're dying off. And I think this is important too, as men in our 50s, man, to really begin to take a hard look at where we are in our lives, especially with our friends. And some friendships are worth, pursuing and saving, if you will, and spending time with people you want to spend time with, because you just don't know when your time or their time is going to come. And this may not be friends in general, but it could be relatives or whatever. But because you mentioned friends, or we're on the subject of friends, I'm thinking about it. And I'll close it with this. I went to a funeral of one of our frat brothers. I don't know, did you know John Cotton?
Mm-mm.
Okay, he's a DC alumni, but he died, beloved brother in the fraternity. This guy was like Mr. DC, went to HD Woodson, was all over the place, was in the communities, doing all kinds of mentoring, all kinds of just great Kappa stuff, achievement things, right? And he died, man, at 63, Harold. And he had just retired, I think 2 months prior to, had a birthday, I think like maybe a month before that. And
Mm-hmm.
I know for a lot of us, as I was talking to other frat brothers, man, it kind of shook me a little bit. One, because, when you're 50 something, or when I was 20 something, 50 seemed old.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm in my 50s, 60s is young, is my point, right? And I was like, this young man with all these gifts, talents, and all of this vivaciousness that was living life, pursuing life, he's gone.
Yep.
And I just started thinking about friends, man. I really did. Then about a week later, a relative died. Another couple of days, some church members, longtime church members I've been in church with, gone. And I just thought in my mind, in my 50s, in my 40s, I never really thought about death or mortality. But in my 50s, I find myself thinking about it now, and not in a morbid way, but in a way where I'm more calculated about the things that I do, about the time that I'm spending, about who I'm spending this time with, what I'm spending time on, right? Because I realize life is precious, and I don't want to waste any time. I don't know how much time I have left, and I don't want to waste it. I want to spend it where I know I should be spending. So some things that I used to do, I don't really do anymore. Like my wife said to me about 2 weeks ago, she said, "Are you gonna watch the Super Bowl?" I'm not watching the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is like 4 hours long with all this stuff. I can do so many other things. I don't.
Mhm.
That's not something I care to do. Like I'd rather spend time talking to you or doing something with you or with someone else. But just to sit in front of the television for 4 hours and watch that, when I could just go on YouTube and get the clips of all of the stuff that happened in a matter of 10 minutes. So it's just little small things like that. I started looking at it saying, I'm not doing that anymore. Right. It doesn't make any sense for my life for where I'm at in my 50s. And I wanted to bring you to this conversation because in talking to you, I've thought about these things before, but I just thought you were a great person to sit down and talk to us about because you have to me you're a big brother, right? And every time I
Thank
talk to
you.
you, yeah, I glean a lot from you. I just sit down and listen to you. I'm like, man, this is okay. And not only that, I want to say this to you publicly and give you your flowers. Man, you are a guy, Harold, who, especially as a man in in your 60s, just a man in general, as a frat brother, so forth and so on. I think of you as a great man because you aren't afraid to extend opportunities to people that you don't have to extend them to. Like your platform is a large platform that many people listen to. You know, a lot of people. When you plug someone, I don't know if you realize this, but when you plug someone, I'm sure you do, but I'm saying it because of myself for a minute. When you plug someone or when you plug me, you don't know how much that meant to me to have me on your show to be able to plug my business or you tell somebody about me or you speak. That
Mm.
speaks volumes to the man that you are because you don't have to do that. You could gatekeep. You could be like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say that, even though it might be true. You're like, I don't have to say that. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to share it. And so I just want to thank you. And I think again, now in my 50s, Harold, I'm at that place, right? Like I want to help younger men be better men because I realized I made some mistakes. And some of the mistakes I made, yeah, it was my fault. But some of the mistakes I made was because I just didn't have anybody to show me how not to make the mistake. And so I'm looking now and I'm saying to myself, how can I help other younger men or even men my age as well? It doesn't really matter. But how can I make a difference? Like I'm looking at my legacy now, even in my 50s now, all of these things are going through my mind. What do I want my legacy to be? What do I want to set up and establish for my children? What do I want to, all just a plethora of things like this I think about fairly often. And I don't know, I'll put it to you. Are you in that place, in that space as well? And again, thank you so much for having me on your platform
Mhm.
because it's meant the world to me. I want to just tell you that.
Well, you're welcome. I guess I don't think about my legacy that much. I'm only thinking about the here and now. So one of the things, and this is something that I've gleaned from my family when my father and my stepmother were living, but I think I've always known this. Two of my pet peeves about people
Mm-hmm.
are uh, ignorance and selfishness.
Mm.
And my parents, my father, my stepmother, and my mother, who is still living, and my stepfather are are and were some of the most giving people that I have ever met,
Mm.
or have ever known, I should say. And and so when you talk about gatekeeping, I don't believe in gatekeeping. uh, if I have the power to positively impact someone's life where they're trying to come in the front door and have been trying and trying and trying, and I have the wherewithal to come in the side door, what have you, by just making a 5-minute phone call that they would not be able to do, then what is lost but 5 minutes of my time? But I
Mm-hmm.
also am not one to say, well, you remember I did this for you, and so now you owe me something. I've always believed that God will take care of you for doing what is right.
Mm-hmm.
And and that goes back to giving to those who don't have. And I remember my father said to me, and when I was a news anchor in Huntsville, Alabama, but making very, very little money. But because I was not only the only, but I was the first Black male anchor in Alabama, I was always trying to do so much for the community. And my father said, "You cannot give to your community until you take care of yourself." But he says, as soon as you do that, then you will be able to give. And so, yeah, you got to make sure that you do take care of yourself. But then, I'm always thinking, knowing the kind of influence that I have with my career and not just my platform, it doesn't hurt to give. And the other thing is, I do not compete against other men. I don't compete against anyone. If there are people out there who are haters, where frenemies, where Mike gets a great big old house, and you're showing me the house. I'm not walking through the house saying, "Dag, I wish I had a house like this." I'm walking through the house saying, "God has blessed you," and so I'm happy with my little piece of real estate. But I just think that people can be more selfless. And I think that's important. But also, and this is my big pet peeve, ignorance. There is so much information to make us as men better people, giving us an opportunity to think before we speak, how we use language, how we speak to sisters, how we speak to each other. And that's my other thing. I can't tell you what to do, but I know what I do. And sometimes you can influence other people by the way they see you interact in certain situations. But I do believe that not just Harold, but I just believe that that we as brothers need to be better for our community. Better, even, look, I don't mind a colorful metaphor every now and then.
I know you don't.
But I think that sometimes we don't have to curse so much. Maybe we can just increase our vocabulary.
Yeah.
I think that even when we see young brothers on the street, I work at Howard University, so I see young men, all the time, and sometimes, even a gentle word about pulling your pants up or making them understand what manners are. That's just a really, really big thing. So,
No, man, you're absolutely 100% correct. I mean, especially in the way that we deal with one another. I mean, again, as I was saying to you, man, in my 50s, I think about these things a lot. Like I don't know why at this particular time of my life where I feel like my male relationships or friendships or relationships with other men is vital to my life. I don't know where God is taking me with this or what he's doing, but I just see it as being a vital part of my life and honestly my ministry and what I do as well. And just making sure that we're okay, right? And making sure I'm okay. Because just sliding back here a little bit, we don't talk about mental health as much as we should. We talk about it a whole lot more than we've ever done before, but we still don't talk about it as much as we should because and I think this is maybe one of the reasons I'm blessed to have people like you in my life again that I can, and I'm a communicator as well. So I don't have a problem saying I'm right or wrong. I got this or whatever is going on with people I care about and that are in my circle. But it's just helping men to be better, as you said. Like it's so many different areas, especially this mental health piece, because there's so many of us, Harold, that are suffering right now especially in our 50s. I think about some brothers I talk to, and it's sad, man. My heart hurts for them because I hear them talk about their children and how there's this great separation with them and their children and how they feel like they've been taken advantage of and that the appreciation for them is not there. And it's in part because, and I'm speaking to any man on here, I hope you'll chime in with us here. drop something in the comments or whatever the case may be. But they feel like their children don't appreciate them as much as they should. You've worked all these years to give your children more than you've ever had in your life or that you'll ever have in your life. The amount of effort, time, money, resources that we expend on our children, how you know it's because you have a daughter just like I do. I have three, you have one. But all of the things that we do for our kids, man, a lot of these guys feel like they don't love me like that, right? At least if they do, they don't show me, they don't tell me. And I think one of the misnomers is that people think as a man, you don't need to be told I love you. Or every now and again, picking up the phone and say, I appreciate you. Or for no reason, just giving them a hug and saying, man, great job. You know, I think in our 50s, a lot of us, man, are starting where we were probably really hard exterior, like we're now kind of softened up. And these things mean something to us. And let me just say this for the sake of us saying it. I don't necessarily have that problem because I got a wife, man, that makes me feel like I'm Superman every single day, right? And I have children who do the same thing for me. But I have friends and people I know that don't get this, Harold, and it's killing them on the inside to the place where they're like, man, I can walk away from all this, right? And in some instances, I know some men, it's like, I'm just a wallet. That's all I am. I'm a wallet. When I need something, when y'all need something, money-wise, y'all come to me, but otherwise, you ain't picking up the phone. Father's Day go by, Christmas go by, my birthday, you call me at 11:59 and say happy birthday or 12:01. You know, I'm an afterthought. And so a lot of men struggle with this, and it messes with, or could mess with, I'm assuming it could mess with your mental. You're like, man, damn, all this stuff, I almost said something else, the colorful language as you said, all this stuff I've done for you and with you, and you know, I can't get a I love you, I can't get a thank you, I can't get a birthday card, I gotta take, when we go out to dinner, it's my birthday, but I'm paying.
Yeah. Well, I would say, and I can't say that it's too late, but I can talk about my own experience where, uh, as a child and as a teenager, my father and I did not have the best relationship because of the headbutting that he and my mother had. But being an introspective person, I realized, and this was during the 80s when so many black men were dying in the street during, the crack epidemic and the like. And while that wasn't an issue in my family, but at some point, I was able to, as a very, very, very young man, recently graduated from college, I realized that at that point, I had my father, I had my grandfather,
Wow.
and also at one point remembered my great grandfather, remembered him very, very well,
You
as
are
well as
blessed.
another grandfather on the other side. And so I made a conscious decision when I was 22 that I went to my father and I had a conversation with him, and I said, paraphrasing now because it was so long ago, I said, look, um, and at this time, he had become a Kappa as well because I made my dad. He pledged
I
two
remember you
years
telling
after
me
I did.
this.
Yeah, that it's time for me to know him not as my father, but as a man and hopefully as a friend. And that was one of the best things that I could ever do. And as it relates to aging, and this is just the crazy way my mind works. When my father turned 70, I made sure, because he was 83 when he passed away. After he turned 70, I made a concerted attempt to spend more time with him, having conversations and doing things because we were very, very much alike. He was a foodie, he was a well dressed man. Um, whether we were sitting down watching football or anything. And so when my father passed away, I had no regrets because I had asked all the questions and said everything that I needed to say. And my father was also a good listener as well as a talker. And so, even for those who may not have their parents around, but with their children, it is not too late to reach out to your children and to tell them, not in anger, but to tell them that you do love them, that you want to do the best to enhance the relationship that you have.
Yeah.
You know.
No, man, that's good. I'm actually, I was just thinking, I'm gonna bring you back, Harold, because you said something that that jarred my memory, and I've been thinking about this topic. And it's what happens when a man grows up without his father.
Mm.
And there's a lot to that. And when I say that, he doesn't have to be dead. Your father could be present, living in your home, but you still grow up without him, as some of us have done, or that he may not be in your home, or whatever the case might be. But I want to bring you back because one of the things I said I wanted to do is 2 shows I want to do. I want to get a roundtable, and maybe even on your show, I don't know if you might consider it. I want to do a roundtable of men who have had to have that conversation, Harold, that you had with your dad. Because it's funny, I'm talking to you now, and I had that same conversation with my dad when I was about 22, and it didn't go well to start. Like it started off very contentious, and it was me mainly expressing how frustrated I was with my father about how I felt like as a child, you didn't do what you could have done for me. As a man, you didn't do what you should have done for me to protect me from certain things, to teach me certain lessons, to just hold my hand and walk through some things with me, to have you just be there for me in situations where I'm graduating from this, I'm being honored for this, people recognize me from this, and you're nowhere to be found. And you know all this stuff. And as a child, men don't often understand that as a father, as a male figure, your presence in your daughter's life, your son's life, your parents' life, your siblings, your friends, and anybody else. We don't often or always understand how big of a role we play in these people's lives. And especially as a father, when you don't have that, what that does to a man. And I just sat down, I've written out, man, I got a whole podcast I want to do, but I want to do it with a couple of men who have been through this, who've had to number one, have the conversation, and 2, were wise enough to know that, and I don't know if you felt this way, but this is exactly how I felt. I felt like I can't let another day go by in my father's life or my life and I not confront him, because this is what I call it, confront him about some things I need from me. Because I've seen too many men die and their children need something from them and they don't get it. The father passes on and the child doesn't know who the father was. And in turn, you don't know who you are. As a man, this is what I honestly believe. If you don't know who your father is, if you haven't figured out who your father was, you don't know who you are. A lot of things we do as men, we don't know we do, but it's partly related to our parents, to our fathers for the most part. And I don't even think you can be a whole man without knowing who your father is. It's just something missing when you don't have that kind of relationship with your father. It's important. It's imperative in my mind, and I've seen in my own experience, because I said this not long ago to someone. Prior to me having that conversation with my dad, Harold, I didn't know who I was at 22. I was scrambling trying to figure out who I was. When we had that conversation, Harold, I wasn't even the same person. I'm a whole different person as a result of confronting my father that one day. I asked every single question. I even kind of, threatened my father. I was like, we're going to have a knockdown drag out. Because look, Harold, at this point, I'm 22. My father is probably 52 at that point. My father couldn't handle me at 22. I don't know about you, but I was lifting weights. I was in the gym. I was very healthy. I was very strong. So I was like, it's nothing you can do with me, short of you trying to get to a pistol, which I'm not going to let you get to. And so I don't want to tell it all, but I'll just say this. That conversation, it didn't just change my life. It changed his life, and we became best friends after that. So I'm going to invite you back for that, because I think you got a story to tell in reference to that as well. But it is a lot more I want to share on this, but I want to wait till for the right time and the right forum to do it, because I think it's a thing that a lot of men need, and they need to be freed from, because they don't know who they are. They're walking around every day trying to figure out, why am I this way? And a lot of that is tied to your father, to your grandfather, to your great-grandfather. And it's so many things I learned in that conversation, Harold. One of them was I learned how to forgive my father, because he told me something that I didn't know about him that I would have never thought. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh my God. Now I understand. The pieces started to fall in place. And I was like, this is the reason why this has never happened. This is the reason why you are. I understood it. And I just started asking more and more questions. And I got to the bottom. Anyway, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but I think we need that. All these things are important. And since we're talking about this, if having these problems, these issues in relationships, and you started talking about this, Harold, it's really important, man, in your 50s to start, if you in your 50s anyway, to start trying to get some of these relationships repaired. Again, you don't know how much time you have on this earth. You don't know what's going to happen to them. We oftentimes see this. We're at a funeral. People want to get in the casket. They're losing it because they haven't said all they wanted to say. They didn't repair the relationships. They didn't do the things they could have done with these people that they know they should have, taken care of. It's just crazy. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, and once you hit 50, and this is the navel gazing, being introspective, if you feel you need to apologize to someone, then do that.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
That's a good one. That is, you want to talk about getting a weight off of your chest when you know that you've done something that you should not have done, or if you did something that you didn't mean to do.
Man.
And you apologize for that. Hopefully that person will forgive you. But then this goes back to being a better man, moving forward after the apology, is to make sure that whether it is a person or a thing, that you don't continue to do that kind of thing or do something to that person. But it will allow you to sleep better at night.
You just touched the nerve right there. That's a good one.
And
asking for forgiveness, right? Asking for forgiveness and apologizing. Those are difficult things for men.
And look, as confident as I am, I don't have a big ego. I tell people all the time, I joke about this. I know a whole lot of stuff, but I don't know everything. And I'm not so puffed up to tell people that I do know everything. I'll tell you, I don't know in a minute. You ask me, well, don't you know? No, I don't. I don't know. I can find out, but yeah, I don't know everything. And you know what they say, I never want to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
I always like being around people who I believe are smarter than I am. And I would argue that all of my friends, guy friends and sister friends, are smarter than I am.
It's not a bad circle to be in.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, man, my time is up. I got to get ready to run. I know you do too. I don't want to keep you too long, but let me just say this, man. This has been a great conversation. I'm so glad to have had it with you. I want to bring you back because I definitely want to get on this dad piece. I want us to talk about that. And again, I want to be in a forum with other men because, and I just saw where in the comments, I don't know if you can see the comments, Harold, but Neil said,
Neil, so you saw Philip. Yes.
Yep. So you saw that last comment where Neil said never got the chance to have that conversation. And I know a lot of men who never had that conversation. I want to try to help heal those men because there's a lot of hurt and pain, in not having that conversation, not being able to approach your dad or talk to your dad about something that deep inside of you, or that's burning that deep inside of you that you need to get it off your chest. You need some answers. And I want to encourage other men, man, as we get ready to wrap this up. If that's a thing that you need to do, as Harold already said, don't be afraid to apologize if you got to apologize. Ask for forgiveness if you need to ask for forgiveness. And I pray that God will drop a spirit of strength in you so that you can approach people you need to approach to have these difficult conversations with. Because a lot of these times, those conversations are not going to be easy. They're going to be very difficult conversations to have with those folks.
Real quick, to Neil, I was going to say, if the person that you wanted to apologize or talk to or ask questions of is no longer living, one of the best things to do is to write them a letter in absentia. And however long it is, just write everything that you wanted to say to your dad if he's no longer there, and write down the question. It is cathartic, and it will definitely help. And whether you keep it or burn it, it doesn't matter. But it will be very, very helpful to marrow and bone.
Listen to me. This is the reason, man. This is one of the reasons why I had you on here. That right there is.
I'm good for something.
You good for a lot of stuff. Listen, man, Harold, let me tell you something, man. It has been a pleasure to have you on. I cannot wait to have you come back so we can have this follow-up conversation regarding dads and what happens to a man when he doesn't get, is he not able to have these kinds of conversations with his dad. But thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
Anytime.
Harold, give out your information so if people want to get in contact with you, and please watch and listen to Harold's show. It is a great show on the Daily Drum. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Well, you could. I'm not hard to find on social media. It's Harold T. Fisher. I am not hard to find at all. I'm on WHUR, the Daily Drum, Monday through Friday, 7 to 8. It's on Sirius XM channel 141 as well, and on our website on WHUR.com. But again, if you just Google Harold T. Fisher, I'm Googleable. So
that you are, and accessible too. Thank you again, man. I appreciate you. This is Mike Johnson from Mandatory Conversations podcast with Mike Johnson. Listen, it's been great having you on. This podcast is dedicated to men, specifically men over 50. Man, I want us to find our healing. I want us to find our place. I want us to be better men. That's what this is dedicated to. So every week you tune in, it's going to be something dedicated to helping us become the men we want to ultimately become. Check us out next week, same time, same place. We'll be here. On Monday, I will be with my co-host, Anika J. Owens. We are in our relationship series, so we're going to be talking man and woman stuff. So please come on back. If you haven't already, please, I need you guys to do this. Harold, you too as well, sir. If you have not, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the channel. That's how we grow. That's how we get bigger. That's how we get this out to a broader audience. We need your help in getting there. We just started a podcast back up. I think I'm almost up to like 600 subscribers. I would like to get up to 600 subscribers before the weekend ends. So I need your help. Please help me do that. If you enjoyed the message, please in the comments, let us know. And also, if there's something you would love for us to talk about, please let me know. I'm entertaining all kinds of subjects and topics. So would love to take care of that for you. And in the meanwhile, we'll see you later. Harold, hold on for a second. We're going to talk for a little bit longer. And everybody else, thank y'all so much for joining. Appreciate you. We out. Peace. Uh-oh. Let's end this thing. Boop.